Yeah, thank you. So my name is Sabrina Pit. As you said, I live in Australia, studied in the Netherlands, so have a European background as well, but I've been in Australia for about 20 years. So I'm the founder of Workvisor International, which is a consulting company that focuses on work, health and aging and education.
I'm curious to know, how did you get involved in this TC314?
Well, funnily enough, it actually started in Finland when I went to a work health and safety conference.
Interesting.
And got in touch with people from the Netherlands who talked about sustainable employability. And I'd never heard of the concept, but because I was working at that point in time and how do we keep older people at work, I started talking to them. And so after that, I did a trip back to the Netherlands and visited several companies that were active in the sustainable employability field in the Netherlands. I then got in contact with the Dutch standards body, and I can't recall how that happened, but they said, they told me about the standard that they were developing or that they planned to develop. And it happened to be that ISO was meeting in Rotterdam when I was there. It was literally just, luck. And so I went to that meeting, and that's where it started. Because that, so the sustainable employability, it's actually a technical report at the moment. But if anybody on the call here is interested in sustainable employability, they can always reach out to me, because we need all the experts in the world that we can have, of course.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing these sessions in terms of building awareness. If you could just start by giving us an overview of how you see standards enhancing things like demographic inclusion and aging in particular.
For me, it comes from the heart to work on an aging workforce standards to make, the quality of life and the quality of work better for our aging people, because it's clear that, the workforce is getting older, the average age is increasing. And I believe that if we develop standards and they are implemented by the right organizations and the right people, that ultimately it leads to the betterment of everybody, companies, people, and the world, to be honest.
How do we change this inherited stereotype that we have that, hey, all of a sudden people cross this line and everything's changed? One day before that, you were an able-bodied, constructive employee. The day after that, it's time to go home. So
I think that mindset is actually already changing, because we have to, retirement age was implemented in, early 1900s when people didn't turn 65. So, but yeah, so what I think is that a standard in itself can be used to, like I said before, improve the quality of life and the quality of work for older people as well. If we look at countries like Thailand and China, for example, who are also involved with developing the aging workforce standards, they will use it, to communicate with their governments, for example. You might know that China is talking about or proposing to lift their retirement age as well. So I think the standards that we are developing, will inform not just countries, like Australia or Canada, but across the globe. And that's actually my why, to be honest. If you ask me about why do I do this, that's why I do it. So I've had a meeting with one of our state governments, and they were very keen to see the finalized product, because what they want to do is use the standard potentially, and this is very preliminary, but if they would, for example, get suppliers or contractors to do work for this government, to then say, look, what are you doing in the aging sector? So it's a bit like, how people try to address gender imbalance.
Right.
That's something, and I think that's something that ISO TC260 could think about is, try to talk to the governments in respective countries where our group is active, to see if there's some sort of link that can be made with the supply chain or the contractors that they work with.
How does a standard help address inclusion as it relates to ageism, for example?
Thank you for that question. So by the end of the year, we will have these aging workforce standards that I talked about. So, there's about 15 or 16 countries involved to ensure we've got the inclusion aspect and diversity across the globe. So we start with leadership and age-inclusive organizational culture. So how, it starts at the top, how do we change that culture? We've got a list of principles that we will work by. Okay, and then we've got a section which focuses on, I would like to call it retirement side. So it looks at retirement transitions. How do you continue in the workforce when you're older? But also one that was brought up by Thailand in particular was around communities. So it's a different culture. So the other one that we're big on obviously is intergenerational collaboration.
Right.
Because there's more and more evidence, as you might know, that will improve the productivity and the understanding and the sharing. So it's not just about knowledge transfer. It's also about, working together and breaking down the barriers and understanding each other. One other aspect that I think is particularly specific to this standard is around dementia. Dementia will become more prevalent as we go on, and early onset or young onset dementia is happening. So the more we can get the word out about that, and we've given some recommendations around what organizations can do if that would occur. And then we've got a few topics that I call sit in the middle of our thinking, which is around digitalization and innovation, and work design, health and well-being, and financial literacy. We went through a very lengthy process of identifying our top 20 recommendations to make it easy to get started with implementing a standard, because I think the problem often is there's so much that you don't know where to get started. And we've just been successful in changing from a guideline to a guideline and requirements document, which will mean that our recommendations, those 20, most likely, we are still working on that and still discussing that, will become requirements instead of the top 20 recommendations.
So it's a vision question. How would you 2 years from now be able to affirm that some of the goals that you've set for yourself, your team objectives, are being materialized?
That there's actually support for the not-for-profit sector, hopefully by governments, to implement standards. Because it's not always necessarily the easiest way. People don't know about it. So there needs to be a lot of awareness raising. There needs a lot of, hand holding, a lot of education needs to follow. And then there probably also needs to be support on how to implement it into practice.
Right.
And I think governments play a crucial role in that. There is some evidence from research from the UK and also from France and Germany that the use of standards has actually improved the performance of organizations or businesses. For example, they might be able to export more because they have followed particular standards. So it just opens up a whole new world.
I've seen something similar, I think, on our HCM Impact website as well, and pointing to Canada, for example, in terms of the net GDP benefit to standards. I mean, do you have any resources, websites or other organizations that you might want to mention in case people are looking and finding more information about this?
Yeah, so obviously the UN Capital, so the HCM-impact.com and we have a LinkedIn group. So I think people should Google 30414 and find our LinkedIn group and join us so you can stay up to date. I think that's a good one to follow. I'm also with a smaller group of this larger group. We are developing a certification process around 30414, and the website for that is globalhrstandards.com. It's a very simple, globalhrstandards.com. So if you want to know more information, the people are listed on there. And yeah, so we're looking forward to actually rolling out our first module, like an introduction on 30414, and also workforce data quality, which is a standard that has been accepted in Australia, and is now going to international level as well, under the leadership of Neil McCormick.
And he made the point that there was a very healthy competition between the regions on this project about who could sort of bring their best game to this. And that healthy competition is such a good thing in research, in academics, in industry, in all these different areas. And it's indicative of the maturing nature, I would say, of the HR professions.
And this is what I actually want to say to other people that are listening to this call today, is that even if you think it's not for you, just come and have a look and join and listen and read and see what you think, because I think followership, you know, from the human factors field, I think is really important, is that we all, you know, have a common goal that we want to move towards to. And, you know, the followership sounds negative, but I'm actually really proud of it, because I think what it does is it raises the bar, it increases the support for us to, you know, make ISO 30414 go worldwide.
But I think people who understand the role and the positioning of standards and the value that it can add to improve, to be more equitable, to be more inclusive, to remove inappropriate biases and subjectivity. These are all things that are possible, you know, and aspirational in terms of the standard.
That if people are skeptical about standards, I would suggest you go and look at the evidence. I've been doing a little bit of looking around at the impact of certification of environmental management systems, for example, in particular industries, in particular countries. They do improve business performance, and they can improve awareness, they can build new markets. So I think come and have a look and see what you can gain.